You are now listening to Talking Transparency, the podcast where transparents talk transparently. Hosted by Thea Ross, Melissa Luxon, and Cody Connor.
You guys are good.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to Talking Transparency, the podcast where transparents talk transparently. I'm Thea.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Cody.
This week on our podcast, we are welcoming you to our space. We're all holding space right now as we are feeling the fallout and the pain from these executive orders. On this episode, we're going to try our very best to search out some joy, but also dive into some heavy topics. So if you are currently struggling with these things, maybe this is a video that you might want to come back to. And if you are willing to dive in, if you are ready to fight, stick with us. Obviously, last night we had a wonderful executive order come through from Donald Trump that was targeting our trans youth, trans teachers, and our safe spaces in public schools. As if you've watched and tuned into our podcast before, you know that we have two amazing advocates who are down at the school board. We're at the school board just this week fighting to make sure that our trans youth and all of our marginalized populations are seen, heard, and that we are showing up for them in all of these spaces. So we are all kind of reeling. We're all trying to figure out what we can do to stay strong throughout all of this. And we hope that if you're listening, you will reach out in your community to find those community spaces, because the thing that's holding me together right now, the thing that gave me joy today, was despite the fact that we had that come out last night, me and producer Athena were able to go to our a local LGBTQ plus homeschooling group. We're not going to discuss when or where or how exactly that is, because we'd like to protect all the wonderful families. And we actually got to spend time with trans youth, and we got to talk to them about what resilience, about what light looks like, and how we get through the dark times. And those kids...
Or aren't they cool?
Was that today?
Yeah.
That was today.
Yeah, it was today.
Oh, so
Was Rowan there?
Yes,
Rowan was there for that then,
absolutely,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So cool.
She gave it an 8 out of 10, the experience.
Oh, the experience was an 8 out of 10. Great.
Well, because, I mean
coming
she
from
has a lot of social anxiety,
Okay, yeah,
right?
okay.
You know, coming out of public school and
Awesome.
just all of that. And so, you know, she has a lot of anxiety about going into a new social
environment.
There's a lot of rejection that she's,
Yes.
you know. And so she was anxious earlier about going.
Yep.
But she gave it an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
So
that's amazing.
Yes, I was happy to hear that.
That's really cool.
I was happy to see her walk in, because like I said, you know, I know some of the parents, I know some of the folks that come to our trans family dinners, they've come to different community events and things like that, but always new faces, because especially when we talk about, you know, LGBTQ plus youth, homeschool LGBTQ plus youth are even more siloed and had an even difficult time. So the people and organizers, the parent organizers of this group are doing their best to make sure that they create these safe spaces. And this comes back to something that is a truism of our community. We keep us safe.
Yes.
No matter what you may think about the power of oppressive state governments, the power of individuals will always trump it. That's the basis of our Constitution, the entire system of democratic governance. So the reason why we started the Trans Family Dinner is because Cody was saying these are the sorts of spaces I'm already hosting for my kids, and I need more of them, and parents need more of them. And getting to see these sorts of spaces specifically for homeschool students is unique.
Right. Isn't it really? I know. I was really so fortunate. I was saying I'm in a cohort, and I'm in a cohort with one of the parent organizers.
Yes.
So I've just gotten to know her over the last 3 weeks. Freaking love her.
I want to have her on the
She's
podcast.
amazing.
She's
We
amazing.
have to have her on the podcast. She's amazing. And what she's doing for LGBTQ youth, for homeschooling, is so important. And like, also, can we just talk about, like, I know that with Selena and the other parent organizers, they're going to be taught actual U.S. history and not that whitewashed bullcrap that they get in public schools.
Yeah, they're going to read the Constitution.
They're actually, right. You know, they're actually going to be educated on those things. So, but to have that space for them, and where they can be with each other as well and share their experiences and really growing up. Because what do you do when you go to school? Like, you're literally growing up with your classmates. You know, as long as everybody stays in the class, you're rising together and you grow up with these folks. And so I just think it's really beautiful that they're starting that. And I'm so glad you got to speak to them. And did they ask you questions?
There were some questions. I feel like mostly the kids were so well informed. It was a little bit shocking. Like when I was that age, I was not nearly as well informed. They were talking, we started, because I said we're in contact with the ACLU, with Equality Virginia, with different partners and different organizations. So I have some more guidance. I've been privy to emails and conversations and such. So I wanted to be able to be there to answer those questions. I opened it up for a time. Yeah. But those kids already were like, no, you scream La Migra, and you run the other way if you're a white person. And I was like, oh, these kids are down.
These kids are down. Look, I'm like, La Migra está aquí.
And I was
then
like,
start running.
Hold up. Y'all are minors. So please listen to your parents and don't just start yelling La Migra and run when you see. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do. And certainly we need to create good trouble. And there's ways to do that. But you are, in fact, a minor and they can detain you for any reason if they want to. And that can create a whole bunch of problems for your parents but I digress. There's a whole other conversation. These kids are all right, though.
Yeah, no, that's so cool.
That's the thing that really...
I love that.
Really gave me life today. So if you're listening and you're struggling and you're worried, how are we going to get through this? The way we're going to get through this is the way we've always gotten through this. We will create those parallel structures. We will create those safe spaces and we'll keep fighting. And if you'd like to support us, please go to kalescoalition.com/donate. We are in a position right now due to this executive order where lots of organizations that take federal and state fundings are all of a sudden having new mandates. They're being muzzled. They are being put under all these different restraints. They're having their funding cut. They're having to fire people. We were very fortunate that we are member funded and we are community funded. Therefore, it is only by the grace of our parents, by our teachers, by our students, by our community members themselves that we're able to do this work. So help us, and we will continue to do that work. And the other thing is like, if you can't support us, I cannot stress this enough. Please, please, please go to the ACLU, the National ACO, Lambda Legal. Make sure that you go to the Human Rights Campaign and be supporting one or all of these organizations as best you possibly can, whether it be financially, whether it be with your time, whether it be sharing the vital information that their staff and volunteers are putting out day over day, because there is so much misinformation and we have to look to those leadership right now. So if you're in any level of advocacy, thank you. I hope that you'll reach out to us, and I hope that you'll continue to reach out to those organizations because they have resources, especially information resources right now. And it feels like, we were going along in a ship. We were just riding along in a ship, and our ship had a hole busted in the side of it, and the water is rushing in, and it is scary. But it is important to remember, as I was talking with our vice president of the Kalos Coalition, Dexter Davis, before we even started this, that it is not that we are fighting the oceans. We are not fighting the tides. That is not what blew the hole in the side of our ship. It was an enemy ship.
That's right.
It's easy to be convinced that it is Mother Nature, that it is some supernatural force, that there is something larger than you that is causing this, but it is not larger than you. These are people.
Yeah.
People with malicious intent. And yes, that can hurt and that will hurt. But just because they blew a hole in the side of our ship does not mean that we will not repair it.
Right.
I am many things, but I believe in myself as a ship of Theseus. I've had to replace and rebuild and improve so many different parts of myself in my life. I know how to do it. And the real struggle is how do we do that with community?
Right.
And how do we do that so that our ship is still watertight, as watertight as we can hope? And
well, because right now what's happening is people are going to start going backwards because they're going to want to hide themselves. And that's not what we want. I mean, obviously for your safety, there's, that's a whole other problem because, I'm terrified right now for my oldest, they're going to be 31. They're an adult, but they live in a state, Wisconsin, where it's, not very great. And they, fly their trans flag proudly they have a huge one in their big window and they have amazing windows and they have it in there and everybody can it's a busy street, people drive by, and I know that the people across the street are Trumpers. And so I just, as a parent, I'm terrified. I'm sure Cody, you've taken some action and changed maybe a few of your daily habits because of what's going on, and I think that's just sad that we feel like we can't go out in public without fear that somebody's going to try to hurt our family, our loved one, our just us, because we are out there supporting, and we are fighting for and advocating for people that, like, I will use as a cisgendered woman, white woman on top of that, right? I will 100% use my privilege to tell people to fuck off, like, and that you're not going to hurt my family or my friends. So, and that's not a luxury of trans people, because those people that need to listen, they don't want to listen to trans people because they're bigots, right?
Well, they also think that we're mentally ill. Our words don't carry weight. They think that we're polluted or poisoned, or that especially people who are susceptible to the idea that, like, queerness itself is a mind virus or some sort of infection. They kind of say, well, that person is a zombie already. They're not going to listen to me when I say, hey, equal rights, protection for all folks, treat your neighbors with love, and those sorts of things. That's not going to resonate in the same way that it might come from a bishop. And one of the things that actually, to talk about it, is Bishop Budd's viral moments and such. So many people found so much strength and resilience, and I'm not trying to criticize them, but when I hear, a cisgendered bishop asking for mercy for trans families, it rubs me in a weird way. Not because I 100% agree.
Right, of course.
But it's also because I know all of the different people that I've ignored. People like Cody, who've gone to school board meetings, people who've gone to the state houses, people who've gone to the federal and have testified and begged, demanded for decency, equality, their rights to be respected. And those were not enough. Right. Begging for mercy when it's trans people, and that wasn't it. But when a bishop does it, with a cisgender white bishop does it, and does it with rights, but regardless, I'm glad that she pierced the zeitgeist, and that was a good thing.
I mean, that took a lot of courage to do that. In front of Donald Trump, that's for sure.
No smoke 100%. To be thrown at her.
Yep,
okay, she's amazing, and thank you for speaking out. We need more theists and more Christian leaders speaking out.
100%.
So no shade. But I want to come back to something that you said, and it's really, really, I think, a crux of the conversation here, is that safety is an illusion. It has always been an illusion. It is something that we tell ourselves. It's something that, we bask in until we can't, because safety is not something that's guaranteed.
Right.
And we're living in a world right now where safety is being taken from us, and the meaning of vulnerable populations is highlighted, because we're talking about people being able to just be snatched up off the street and disappeared. We're talking about folks losing their jobs. We're talking about people losing their health care. We're talking about people losing their families.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is not just some buzzword or woke word. It's not something that, like, it's cutesy or liberal. It's not political left, right. It's not, but we're talking about, like, folks who cannot call the police, and if they call the police are then going to make things worse for them.
That's correct. Yes.
And when we talk about trans and queer people, we talk about the intersection of, like, state law and power. That's what it really means, is that we no longer feel safe, because if I was to call a police officer to try to help me, can I trust that police officer? I mean,
well, the answer is always no.
Well, yes,
you can't trust cops.
But at the same time, the worse that gets, and the less civic participation and security that we feel, the more panic that we feel.
Right.
But it's important to remember, as I was saying earlier, that it is not that the world is out to get us. It's that there are people in the world out to get us, and to keep ourselves based in that, because the world we are a part of.
Right. And I what do you think? What do you think?
I mean, that's a big, what Thea's talking about with the safety. That's what people are seeing, is there's a certain amount of safety that comes with a society that accepts you and protects you and offers you protections, and a government that does that, right? And that's what we're seeing. That's really, to me, the scariest about what's going on, is those safeties are being eroded. Not just the government safeties, but the way people are being presented and portrayed by the government is also eroding those social safeties
Yep.
that exist. And to me, that's what was the most scary, because just like Thea pointed out, it's one thing to be in a dangerous situation when, like one of the things that they tell you about it, if you're in danger, if you're doing something, go to a place with people.
Right.
It's one thing to do that when society offers you protection.
That's right. But
when society doesn't, when it's not acceptable for society to offer you protection, then those normal dangers become more dangerous.
That's right.
And then when society also portrays you as dangerous, now you increase the likelihood that somebody will view you as dangerous and treat you as dangerous and attack you as dangerous while you were out in society. And that's the kind of unvoiced logic of the fear that's building in our communities.
Yeah.
You're touching on like the effects of stochastic terrorism.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's the
yeah.
effects of stochastic terrorism.
But to put it into like really granular terms, I think about this in terms of self-defense, especially for trans women and trans men. Because let's say that you're in a public space and I'm identifying, people see me, I'm moving through space as a woman, but all of a sudden I am getting in a fight. Someone comes up to me. If they, let's say that they, you know, somehow out me, all of a sudden my voice goes too deep or something. In a normal circumstance, if a man or another woman, someone might intervene. Like, oh my gosh, a man's beating up. They will pause because they do not understand and actively may even become hostile towards me.
Right.
In those situations. And the stochastic terrorism is a social force that is trying to keep the allies and the folks who would say, it doesn't matter who the gender, we're going to stop this. It's almost like they want me to be blamed for the violence that's going to happen to me. And then they also that I can't rely on my community to show up and be safe for me because those people are not sure if they will be safe.
Right.
Because if they start defending a trans person, all of a sudden they could be in a situation. And I think
Right.
that fear, that pervasive fear, is what causes us to be siloed and become more and more vulnerable.
And those are the situations they're trying to create for every facet
Yep.
Yes.
of the community is these no right decision scenarios.
Right.
Like with the executive order banning all gender affirming care from
For 19 and under.
19 and under.
Or under 19, I guess.
Yeah, under 19.
I mean, not
so
even 18
and under.
No, it literally said
19.
It
yeah,
said
it's 19 and under, so you have to be 19.
I mean,
you have to be over the age of 18. Not even 18, over the age of 18.
Yeah, that's also wild. Like,
But as a parent, right? And it's one of those, and it's part of, you know, some of the decisions and courses that we've tried to follow, is the fear that would be taken away. But as a parent, now what is the right decision? Now what is the right decision? I know that if we go these routes, insurance and other things will quickly not cover it if these stands.
yeah.
And we're not talking about like bottles of Tylenol.
Right.
I know that it can become very, very difficult for me to provide that.
Correct.
If you even can.
If
we
I
talk about
even-
the financial
yeah.
part of it, but can you even get a doctor to write
even
this
if I can, and then say I can.
Yeah.
Say I can find a way, which will probably be illegal in some form or another.
Right.
Now I risk even being able to be the one taking care of my child,
Right.
to take care of my child.
Correct.
And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create these impossible to navigate situations.
Yeah. And it's just mass chaos right now. I mean, it's just, there's, like, this came on the heels of, you know, him signing the executive order with the military members, no trans military members in, you know, or no trans people in the military, which affects like 15,000 service members.
I think it affects a lot. Like you're right, accurate on the numbers, but we have to remember that those service members also have housing. They have spouses.
Right. Well,
they have kids.
no, it's just
We're talking
15,000 of
about-
the service members. It's the families. That was what I immediately went to.
Yeah.
Like families that are going to be impacted because that military member may be the only source of income for their family because their spouse doesn't or their partner doesn't work.
Or their family might live in military housing, and now they all of a
And
sudden
now
out
they
on the street.
out on the street.
And the other thing that's so interesting about that unique executive order is that it goes so overboard in defining us as moral and ethical failings as a threat, to the point that like it basically defines us as a violation of moral turpitude, like
Which
the
is
standards,
so
which is
disgusting.
Which is disgusting because that is used not just within the military, but within like a standard of corporate contracting and everything, that if the United States federal government defines transness baseline as a violation of moral turpitude, that means
the corporations can follow suit because
that corporations can follow suit. They've created
all
a
of
legal
your
precedence.
there's no protections. Like they've literally removed the T from like the LGBT. That's, and of course you see conservatives doing that. You start hearing them. I've started noticing. I think I said this about 6 months ago. LGB.
Oh, yes.
They're leaving off the T, right? But it's a whole protected class, and they're trying to segregate off essentially that just trans people, and it's dehumanizing. They're literally trying to pretend that you don't exist, and it's absolutely, I mean, vile is
I don't know if there's a bad enough word for it.
I don't even know if there's a bad enough word for it.
I don't know if there's a bad enough word for it. Certainly not one that we can say
right
live
on
streaming.
live streaming. Probably
I can't think of any of those even that fit the bill.
I know.
Here's the thing. Executive orders, for those who are listening and those who know anything about government,
They're not laws.
They're
These
not
are
laws.
just-
They're not laws. Yeah.
These are attempts, and he the golden calf, as I like to call him,
I love that. Yeah, the golden calf.
is certainly trying to see just how far executive power can go, and not only that, just how much he owns the rest of the legislator and the other branches.
But to that point,
this is all testing.
It's not just testing. This is setting up a test case, because when an executive, while it does not have legal weight, it does have the ability to be challenged as if it has legal weight. And there's a little subtle distinction.
Yep.
Consider how the Supreme Court ruled in the 1990s that Bill Clinton no longer had the line item veto. They were able to put through the judiciary branch limitations on the executive branch, and we know that within a system of checks and power. The people who wrote these executive orders understand that intimately, and what they've done is set up a scenario where all it takes is they don't no longer have to find the right test case. They don't have to go through all the appellate courts. They don't have to find any way to undo equal protection. All they have to do is have the president sign something absolutely outrageous that's clearly extra legal beyond anything, and now they are able to get a standing and a grounding to challenge our equal protection within the Supreme Court.
Yep. Skip over
Right to federal courts.
Yep.
They don't even need to have a test case. They can have it totally theoretical. They can have it in whatever they want, and they can challenge these things without having any human aspect to the trans people that they're actually going to be disenfranchising and stripping equal protection. And also, it comes in the backdrop, we cannot forget, of the Scarametti case, wherein they're specifically trying to put a chink in equal protection by saying, well, children are treated differently. This is them trying to set up not only the expectation that that's going to fall in their favor any day, any week now, but then also the next challenge. And you have to understand this about the American conservative movement, is that they are judicial activists. They will accuse the left and everyone else of being judicial activists, but they themselves have done more. Case in point, the 303 Elenis case, completely manufactured by conservative right wing, and they ultimately won and have the right today to discriminate against me and say, no, we're going to deny you service at my business. And this is an extension of the denial of our equal protection, our rights, our access to public accommodations, private accommodations, or even whether we'll be allowed to have our bodies be seen as productive by the military-industrial complex.
Right.
They see us as garbage, as a threat, and that is so violent.
Absolutely.
There's no other word than violence for it, to take someone's jobs and their homes. And
I mean, I can think of a time, multiple times in history, where we and other countries, like when somebody says that Guantanamo Bay is the first, like when people are talking about the deportations to Guantanamo, because that's another executive order as example, people say first constant, like, oh, we have our first. It's not the first.
No.
Plantations were the first.
And then there were World War II.
Right. And then you have World War II. And so you have Japanese internment.
We skipped over a few, I think, as well.
For sure. But it's just not. It's not the first time. And so now what we're I mean, trans people are the boogeyman now. Like they found something that hits the nerve because we're talking about youth, and that is where and honestly, exposure, society. These kids, like you said, you met with kids that are homeschooled. You were surprised at how well informed these kids are. Kids are informed, much more informed than we were when we were kids. I know, I mean, I'm 48. I'm the oldest one here. I certainly know well more than, I mean, I was a grown-ass adult before there were cell phones existed.
I remember still having to look stuff up in
A phone book.
encyclopedias.
Oh my gosh, we just talked about that.
Oh my goodness,
I
yeah.
just was talking about like 2 weeks ago. I'm like,
I did it a lot.
Me
but
too.
I had to. You had to go through and like, what would this be under? Sometimes you had to look through a few different sections of the encyclopedia to like start figuring out what you really had a question about.
Yeah. No, I mean, and now it's like information is at like our fingertips, you know what I mean? Versus all the reading we had to do.
And Google like a heart.
I'd see, yeah. I Google everything.
Different ways. All the different things.
I know. I wish AI didn't suck so much, because I will tell you, somebody asked ChatGPT to take one of Trump's executive orders, or all of them, I think, maybe. Oh, for this one, it was all of them, and essentially compare Trump's executive orders to what happened in Germany. Okay. And ChatGPT, and like summarize it, like make it succinct. Holy crap. I mean, I wish I didn't hate it. That was like kind of smart. I mean, that was kind of smart, but now he's published it, so we don't have to use AI to get the information, but I found it on Threads.
I just wish AI, could do the things that I don't like to do.
Yeah.
Like it can do my work and everything, and I can like make pictures.
Yeah, exactly. And we can just exist. I mean, that's the thing. Western culture is that we are here to produce. That's our culture. Versus
we are the product.
Yeah, we are the product. Yeah. So, but all of this is really challenging. And if you're watching, there are resources like Kalos Coalition, and Trevor Project. We just need to make sure we stay in community and we hold space for everybody that is affected by this, and just the trans community. Like, we need to open our arms and like hold on to our trans family and friends, because it's so overwhelming what's going on right now. I'm just overwhelmed.
Let's focus in on that overwhelm. Let's not get overwhelmed by the overwhelm.
Yeah.
There are people who may or may not be listening. This may be watched by some in the future. What can you do?
Right.
You're sitting here with us listening to this. We've laid out all the negativity. We're overwhelmed together. What can you do? I want you to think of a trans or queer person in your life. If you don't have trans or queer person in your life, we'll come back to that. But I want you to think about the trans and queer people in your life. Have you reached out to them? Have you sent them a message? Have you texted them? Have you called them? Tell them that you love them. Because I can't tell you that there's going to be some great state power or some action that you can take, but you can spread love and joy with your own two little hands. And right now, that is the action that is needed. I know so many trans people who are broken, scared, afraid to go outside. They have lost their jobs, some of them. Some of them are literally being kicked out of the military. They're losing their house. Like, people are afraid for their kids. And they don't know if they can even speak publicly, because anytime that they speak publicly, like my silly ass is doing, they're afraid that they're going to have retribution visited upon them and their loved ones, or they're going to lose even more. So call them now, before it's too late to reach out to them. Give them that love and affection and community, because that is what you have to give. I don't expect you to save us, and hopefully you don't expect to save yourself. Yeah. We are going to save ourselves.
That's right. Trans people will continue to basically save yourselves. There's never going to be a space where you're not welcome for me, in my life, in Cody's life. Like, there's that, and I don't know how else to communicate to people that we are all humans. None of this shit matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should love one another. Like, meaning, if I'm not harming you and you're not harming me, mind your business. Okay, just for the listeners or viewers, All of this noise is the U.S. Navy because we're very close to a Navy jet base in the background. But
I mean, and that's the thing. Trans people always have existed.
have always existed.
Trans people
Will
will
always
always exist. Whether everybody's comfortable with it or not.
That's right.
And truth will continue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big thing is just speak truth.
Mm-hmm.
Just continue to speak and live your truth. For whoever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't win.
Right.
They
Yeah.
can't win.
No.
I like to say it like this:
They can't.
fascism sows the seeds of its own destruction through its
Yes.
cruelty, brutality, and rank evilness.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
Yes, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and,
So
and, and
let's-
that's the thing is evil will always eat itself.
Yep. And because unfortunately we have to keep this short tonight because my husband had neck surgery only 6 days ago. And so having said that about the evil, I think that we really love to talk about joy. So that would be, I would like to real quick trans family dinner date.
Oh, yes. If you're listening, you can go to kalescoalition.com/TFD. You can sign up through our encrypted form to come join us. Our next one is going to be on February 16th. It's going to be in Virginia Beach. When you sign up, you will be getting an email probably within a couple days or something with the actual address and stuff. We like to screen everything so we know we can keep it a safe space. We're also going to be having one on Easter this year on April 20th. And there's another one in March, but I don't have the date right off the top of my head, so I really apologize. It's going to be the third Sunday in March. We have one of those. We're going to be hosting that as well. So please go in, sign up, check out. We'll have all the information updates that are coming through. And yeah, we're going to do as many as we can.
And that these are our spaces where we create joy and everyone loves each other. And it's such a happy, hello, food makes you happy. And then being around people that you love makes you happy. So it is a very joyful time. Yeah. So Cody, it's your cue.
That's my cue.
That's your cue.
We use that joy to defeat hate, because trans joy will always defeat hate.
Maybe not right away,
but
like
soon.
a stream, surely it will erode all the mountains of hate.
Yes. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Collective Tattoo and the Kalos Coalition. We are listener supported, so if you like the show, please consider donating to us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkingtransparency. Like, share, and subscribe across social media, and be sure to visit our Linktree at linktree.com/talkingtrans.